Thank you everyone for joining us today. It's great to be with you. My name is Joel Dodge and I am co-chair of the ACS New York Lawyer Chapter. It's my pleasure to present to you today's event with the Children's Defense Fund of New York. Today's event is all about the Child Tax Credit, which is a deceptively wonky name for what has quickly become a life-changing program for millions of American families in just the last few months. As part of the American Rescue Plan COVID-19 relief legislation, the federal government has greatly expanded the child tax credit to pay out several $100s to most American families every month this year. So what was before a tax reduction for some families has morphed into a powerful program resembling something like Social Security for kids, a program that is already making historic reductions to child poverty and child hunger, which we'll hear more about today. And while most families around the country are automatically receiving the child tax credit payments, some families must take active steps to sign up to receive these significant cash benefits. And that's what we're going to talk about today. And our presenters today are going to demystify the child tax credit and explain exactly how families who might be at risk of missing out on these significant benefits can get enrolled now. So with us today, we're happy to have Ben Anderson and Missy Janadri from the Children's Defense Fund of New York. Ben is the Director of Health and Economic Justice Policy at the Children's Defense Fund. He oversees CDFNY's health and economic justice policy portfolios, which include ensuring barrier-free access to critical income supports like the child tax credit, improving access to healthcare, improving the quality of healthcare and services for children, and eliminating disparate health outcomes for all New York children. Ben began his career as a healthcare attorney, focusing primarily on Medicaid reimbursement and complex rate setting matters. Missy Janadri is a health and economic justice policy associate with CDFNY, where she works to ensure that every New York child has a healthy start in life through a focus on bolstering family income supports, improving health coverage and outcomes, and increasing access to high quality, culturally, linguistically appropriate care, and eliminating health disparities. Before she joined CDFNY, Missy worked for NYU Langone Health, where she spearheaded educational initiatives to improve performance in a Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services Quality Reporting Program. Just so everybody knows, we will reserve time at the end for questions, so please submit your questions to the Q&A box in the Zoom. And with that, I'll turn it over to Ben and Missy. It's great to have you both with us. And I think Ben is going to kick things off.
Sure, yeah, happy to get started. We do have a slide deck that hopefully folks are now able to see. And if we could, Missy, go ahead and bounce a couple slides forward. So just an overview of what we're going to be going over today. I will take us through sort of background information on the expanded child tax credit. And then Missy, who's the real expert here and has been leading webinars like this one for a number of months now, will take us through the FAQs, how to use the different portals that are available to claim the child tax credit and provide some additional helpful resources. So with respect to child poverty in America, pre-pandemic, children were already one of the poorest constituencies in the US. Nationwide, nearly 1 in 7 children lived in poverty in 2019. Almost half of those children lived in deep poverty, which is defined as living at or below 50% of the federal poverty level. So we're talking, less than $10,000 annual income. And children of color and Hispanic children are disproportionately impacted by poverty. 71% of those children live in poverty. Next slide. So why is this the case, or what can we do to fix it? Major issues include wage stagnation, income inequality, unavoidable economic disruptions. At the micro level, you might have the death of a parent or layoffs of one or both caregivers. And we don't have a universal monthly child allowance or sort of guaranteed income to make sure that whatever happens in that child's life, that their needs are met. So Missy and I do this work in New York. Oh, next slide, Missy. And so if you're also in New York and doing the work here, we wanted you to have access to this information also. And the picture here is similar to what you see at a national level. Roughly 1 in 5 children in New York are living in poverty. Black and Hispanic children are twice as likely as their white counterparts to live in poverty. And the poorest congressional district in the US is the 15th congressional district in the Bronx. Next slide. So why should we care about this? Why does child poverty matter? And it's about breaking intergenerational cycles and trying to prevent poverty in the future. Poverty rates are associated with cognitive gaps in young children. It's associated with decreased graduation rates, as well as increased risk of unemployment and poverty in adulthood. And so what can we do to help families living in poverty? Well, one of the things that, of course, we're talking about today is direct cash assistance. And one form of direct cash assistance is the child tax credit, which is the recognition of the importance and expense of raising children in America. And we want families to raise children if that's something they want to do, and we want them, those children, to be able to have everything that they need to be healthy and successful into adulthood. And what the child tax credit does is it embodies those principles and those values in the tax code to help families with children. Next slide. So child tax credits are one of the many tools that we have available to help lift children out of poverty. But I think it's important to mention that it's just one tool, and it's not intended to displace these other important programs, and it's not an excuse for poorly functioning programs. So while we're expanding the child tax credit, or the child tax credit has been expanded for 2021, it's also important to not lose sight of many of the other programs that help us tackle poverty. Next slide. And so President Biden, recognizing the importance and effectiveness of the child tax credit, proposed its expansion as part of the American Rescue Plan, which was signed into law on March 11th of this year. And we'll take you through the details of it on the next slide. So it increases the benefit levels for young children, children under the age of 6, to a maximum annual benefit of $3,600 per child. And for older children, it increases the benefit to $3,000 per child. A significant change was that it also made the tax credit fully available to children in the lowest income families. The maximum benefit available starts at the $0 income level. And it's paid out in regular installments. So monthly benefits have been available starting back in July, and will continue through the end of this year. And actually on the next slide, we have a calendar that outlines the payment schedule. So you see there the first half of the payments being made available in July through December of this year, and the second half of payments are available in the spring of 2022. Next slide. And here's what you see is the estimated impact of the expansion, and it's a near 50% reduction in children living in poverty. And we see a little bit of an outsized effect for those younger children, children under 6. And on the next slide, go ahead and take us one more slide, Missy. Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot. So again, if you're like Missy and I, and you're doing this work in New York, you know, I think it would be helpful to know that the effect is a little bit diminished compared to what states nationally are seeing. It's cutting the poverty rate here in New York by about a third. And I should say this assumes that the families who qualify for it sort of get to the portal or do whatever they need to do to claim their credit. So a lot of what Missy is going to talk about later will help us ensure that we hit some of these projections. And we're starting to see some positive impacts of the credit. What you see here, the bottom line, the black line, traces the child poverty rate and indicates sort of the impact with all the various different types of relief that have been available throughout the pandemic. And what you see beginning at the end of June and coming into July is a significant reduction in the number, percentage rather, of children living in poverty. Almost a 4% decline. And we're talking about around 3 million children who were sort of brought out of poverty around that same time. Next slide. And another way we have to capture what the impact of this expansion has been in sort of just the last couple months, really, you know, we're talking about a matter of weeks, is the Household Pulse Survey that's administered by the U.S. Census Bureau. I know I've received this survey from time to time. I don't know if anyone else has, but it's a survey that, you know, just checks in with families to see, you know, how things are going economically. And one of the measures that they report on is food insufficiency among adults in households, and they capture both adults with children and adults without children. And we see that before the tax credits went out, when you talk to adults in households with children, 11% were reporting food insufficiency, and that number dropped after the initial payments hit, and it dropped by almost 3%. So that's something we'll continue to track and hopefully continue to see that measure and other measures improve. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Missy.
Yeah, thank you so much, Ben, for that really great sort of introduction about why the child tax credit is so important. Right now, we would really love to sort of give you all a sense of some of the questions that we most frequently received with regards to getting these payments to New York families. And sort of some of the issues that we see are most commonly. So first and foremost, folks are always curious about how much they are going to receive from the child tax credit. And that really depends on the number of children that you have, how old they are, and also your own income. And so we thought it would be helpful to sort of reiterate the income thresholds, that as long as if you are unmarried and earning less than a salary of an annual salary of $112,500 or married with an annual household income under $150,000, you are eligible to receive the full child tax credit payment. Again, that's $3,600 per child under age 6 and $3,000 per child ages 6 to 17, paid out in these monthly increments. And really, the benefit for families who may be higher earning families, the benefit will start to reduce by $50 for every additional $1,000 of income earned. And so individuals who are earning up to $200,000 and joint filers who are making up to $400,000 are still eligible for the $2,000 per child benefit that they were previously qualifying for. We are often asked whether the child tax credit will impact eligibility for other benefits or programs. And we are always very quick to say that it absolutely will not. Tax credits do not count against earned income. And so the child tax credit, receiving the child tax credit in no way, shape, or form impacts eligibility for any other federally funded benefit program like Medicaid, SNAP, or TANF. Individuals who are undocumented may wonder if they are eligible to receive the child tax credit for their children. Now, immigrant children must have a Social Security number in order to be eligible to receive the federal child tax credit. Their parent or guardian who is claiming them to receive the credit does not have to have a Social Security number. But if that individual does not have a Social Security number, they do need to have an individual taxpayer identification number or ITIN. There are also a lot of questions that we see very frequently around who in particular is eligible to claim a child for purposes of receiving the child tax credit. So there are very particular qualifying child rules that are laid out in the tax code. And essentially, a child, in order to be eligible to claim the child tax credit, a child must live with the person who is claiming the credit for at least 6 months of the year. And in addition to that, there are certain relationships that the child must have with their guardian. So they must either be a biological child, legal foster or adoptive child, or a grandchild, sibling, niece, or nephew of the tax filer. And so unfortunately, what that means is that there are certain children as a result who are denied the benefit because either their primary caregivers are family friends or a more distant relative that doesn't fall into one of those categories, or they do not spend at least 6 months in a single household, as is sometimes the case for some of the children in our child welfare system. Another topic that there are often a lot of questions around is how does this work with parents who may split custody of their child? So really the parent who has primary custody of the child will receive the credit, given that the child lives with the caregiver at least 6 months of the year. And so really this is often determined by the parent who claims the child on their tax return. And so sometimes there are, arrangements made between parents who split custody where maybe, in different years they will alternate claiming their child. But really, for the purposes of this credit, whichever parent had claimed the child on their 2020 tax return is the parent who is currently receiving this benefit. And again, we just wanted to make sure to emphasize this one because it does come up quite frequently, which children are not eligible for receiving the federal child tax credit. And so because children must have a social security number to be eligible, that does make around 1 million immigrant children nationwide ineligible and over 70,000 kids here in New York not eligible. And because of some of the qualifying child rules in the tax code that I just spoke about, there are around 330,000 children in our child welfare system nationwide who are also left behind either because of the family member or family friend that they live with, or the fact that they may not be under the care of one guardian for at least 6 months of a year. Now, how will the IRS know how much money to give my family? Again, that is really primarily based on your 2020 tax return. And if a family didn't file a 2020 tax return, the IRS will go back 1 year to use your 2019 return. Now, I just want to make 2 notes here. One is that it is definitely not too late for families to file 2020 taxes. Families still have a little over a month until the middle of October to do that. But secondly, for families who may not be required to file taxes and so don't typically do so, we are really happy that there are alternate ways that families can sign up to receive the child tax credit. And today we are going to be walking you through one of these ways, which is a really great new portal for non-tax filing families. And so right now we are going to switch gears a little bit and do a bit of a deep dive into a brand new portal for non-tax filing families. Now I did just want to sort of pause for a second and just level set a little bit to make sure that it's really apparent that there are currently two options for non-tax filing families to claim the child tax credit. The one that we will really be emphasizing today and spending some time exploring is a brand new simplified filing portal that was unveiled by the White House in partnership with Code for America just a week ago today. It's literally a week old. It is a brand new mobile and user-friendly tool that is available in both English and Spanish. And it is available right now at this Get CTC website that you see on this slide, but is also directly linked on the White House's child tax credit website. So you can access it in both of these places. And in addition to the Code for America tool, there is also a tool that was developed by the IRS and has been available for some time, but is anticipated to close in just over a month. It is definitely not quite as user-friendly as the new Code for America tool, and there were definitely some improvements that were made to it in this new tool. And so because of that, we're not going to, really walk through it during the webinar, but we did want to include, some information about it and some sort of a bit of a visual walkthrough. So in the appendix of these slides, you can sort of take a look once you receive them, and there's a lot of information about that IRS tool there if you're curious. And so this is the welcome page of the Get CTC portal. It essentially provides the basic qualifications that individuals should have if they're looking to use this tool. And so really these first three green check marks are ones that we really want to be sure that we're, advising clients about. The individual must have a valid Social Security number or ITIN. They must earn less than these certain income thresholds. So $12,400 for an individual, or $24,800 if they are married and filing jointly, and the individual has not filed a tax return this year. As long as we're sure that individuals meet those three requirements, they can definitely proceed and use this tool. And essentially, the tool is going to sort of start out by assessing eligibility to make sure that an individual is in fact eligible to use this non-filer portal. And the tool really does that eligibility assessment in three ways. First, it really wants to ensure that clients do not make more than that filing threshold, which again is $12,400 if filing single, or $24,800 if married and filing jointly. And so the one other income threshold that we just wanted to highlight is that for head of household, which is $18,000 $650. And so if the individual did make over these thresholds, they will be taken to this screen in the middle where they will be redirected to file a full tax return. But if the individual indicates that no, they do not earn over these thresholds, they will be taken to this last panel you see on the right, and will still have the option to file a full tax return, which they may choose to do if they have a substantial amount of earned income and feel like, they may benefit by filing a full return and claiming all of the credits that they can. And so they'll have the choice to do that or to continue filing a simplified return through this portal. The second part of the eligibility check is just to make sure, again, that the individual did not already file a 2020 tax return. It will ask if they have done that, and it will also ask if the individual has filed a 2019 tax return. And if that is the case, then the portal will ask if there are any changes that the individual would like to make to their 2019 tax return. And that's an important question to note, because if not, if there are no changes that the client wishes to make to that 2019 return, there is no need to continue with this portal, because in theory, that person should already be receiving their child tax credit payment. And so if that's the case, then they maybe need to think about seeing if there are any updates that they need to make to that 2019 return, or if there is something that may have happened there that is preventing them from receiving the payments. And then the last part of the eligibility check is just ensuring that the individual is not a dependent themselves, because dependents do not qualify for child tax credits. And so once the portal has verified that you are in fact eligible to be using it, it will then ask for some basic information, legal name, and social security number or ITIN, which again is required. If the individual indicated that they filed a 2019 tax return and potentially want to make some updates or changes to it, they will need to enter in their 2019 adjusted gross income. So that is something to keep in mind, that clients will need to have that information available if they indicate that they have filed that 2019 return. Next, the portal is going to verify contact information. It does that by requesting either an email address or a cell phone number. So the individual can enter in either one that they prefer, and then the portal will send either a verification text or a verification email. And the client can use that person who is completing the portal. Or as married filing jointly. And one note to make is that single also encompasses head of household, qualifying widower, and married filing separately. And so depending on what choice the client chooses, they will see different screens pop up next. But in case they select married filing jointly, they will then need to enter in their spouse's basic information. And so they will need to, enter their spouse's name, their social security number or ITIN, and whether or not their spouse filed a 2019 tax return. And if they choose this third option, my spouse filed a full tax return separately from me, then they will also be asked to provide their spouse's 2019 adjusted gross income. The client will then be able to double check that all of this information is correct and continue. The next step in the portal is to go ahead and add any and all dependents that the client would like to claim. One note here is that clients really should claim any individuals who they think are dependents, even if they may not qualify for the child tax credit, because there may be other benefits or payments they may be able to receive. The portal will then ask for some basic information about the dependent, as you see here. And on this panel on the right, the individual will enter in the dependent's relationship to the person submitting this return. So whether they're a qualifying child or a qualifying relative. And depending on which option is chosen here, the client will be taken to a series of different questions to determine if that individual qualifies for the child tax credit. And really based on the responses to those series of questions, the portal will then determine if this person is a qualifying dependent. And so if that individual is in fact a qualifying dependent, the client will see this panel on the left and will be asked to enter either a social security number or an adoption taxpayer identification number for their dependent. And if that individual is not a qualifying dependent, they will see this panel on the right, which sort of lists out the various stipulations for a qualifying dependent. And once all dependents have been added and their information has been confirmed and verified, the individual can select Done Adding Dependents. And then we're almost done. One additional feature of this portal is that it gives individuals the opportunity to recover any missed stimulus payments. So clients who may have missed part or all of the first or second stimulus payments can recover them as a recovery rebate credit on this tax return. And so in these next series of slides, the portal is basically going to tell the client how the amount of payment that they are eligible for, and then ask whether or not the payment received that amount. And so clients will first be asked if they received any of the first stimulus payment. And so if they answered yes, they will be redirected to then enter the total amount they received for their first stimulus payment. And if they select no, it will be assumed that they did not receive any of the stimulus. And then the client will be asked the same exact question for the second stimulus payment, and given an opportunity to enter in how much they received for that payment. And after the client enters in the amount that they did receive for these first and second stimulus payments, the portal will go ahead and calculate the difference and indicate the additional amount that the client could be eligible for. Now, if for some reason the client made a mistake and maybe the amount that they indicated was maybe different from what in fact they received or what they should have received, the IRS can correct this error and will notify the client. But just a caveat that will definitely delay receipt of the child tax credit payments. And so it's just a note to make that if this number is off somehow, it won't cause rejection of the submission, but it will slow things down a bit. Next, the individual can select how they would like to receive their payments. Direct deposit is definitely the most secure way to receive payments and will enable individuals to receive them the fastest. But individuals can also definitely elect to receive payments via mail. And if the client selects direct deposit, they will then see these 4 screens and be asked to enter all of their bank account information. And even for individuals who select direct deposit as a payment preference, the IRS actually requires a mailing address on all returns. And so entering in a mailing address is required for this portal. If for some reason the IRS isn't able to send a payment via direct deposit, they will send it as a physical check in the mail, and can also use this address for any communication. And so it's important that clients select a mailing address that they'll have access to through the end of the year. For individuals who may be unhoused or underhoused, they could potentially enter in the address of a community organization who is helping them with the filing, or perhaps a shelter or a trusted friend or a relative. But it will be important to have some address on this return. If the client, their spouse, or any of their dependents are confirmed victims of identity theft and were issued an identity protection PIN by the IRS, they will need to include that on this return as well. And so once all of this information has been entered in, the client will be asked to review one last time before submitting to the IRS, and will also be asked to enter in a 5-digit PIN number of their choosing that sort of will function as a password here. And then they will click "I'm ready to file." And then the very last step for submission through this portal is that clients must agree to the consent by checking "I agree" and "File my return." And once they do that, they will have an opportunity to download a copy of their return and will receive either a confirmation text or email letting them know that the return has been submitted. And then they will then receive another notification to let them know if their return has been accepted or rejected. The official transmission says that this will come within 48 hours, but we've heard through conversations with our national partners and Code for America that this confirmation or rejection could come as soon as 30 minutes after submission, and the individual could know that quickly whether or not their submission has been successful or not. And so this is just a sample of a accepted notification email, and then one if a return is rejected, and some additional steps are needed for that client to log back into the portal and sort of see the reason why the return was rejected. And so very quickly, I realize we are running short on time, but before turning it back over to Ben and to Joel, I just wanted to very quickly share some resources that will hopefully be helpful to all of you as you work with clients and communities to get them signed up for this critical benefit. And so we reviewed some frequently asked questions, but there are a whole host more that you can find through these resources from us, as well as a really great library from our national office. So we have links here, as well as to our direct advocacy hub if you'd like to take action and help us make this expanded child tax credit permanent. We've also got some tax prep resources for individuals who are still interested in filing their 2020 tax return. And a couple of resources for navigators. I'd especially like to emphasize that second bullet from the getctc.org. They have some great things there. And as we mentioned, the Code for America non-filer portal is brand new. So we're still definitely in the process of developing materials and outreach for that. But Code for America has a great step-by-step guide and video tutorial on that as well. And there are also some resources here for the IRS tool. And then lastly, I include this here because I think of this as an amazing resource for myself, but we just wanted to include some information about the Automatic Benefit for Children Coalition, which is co-chaired by our national office, and is a really great combination of national, state, and local groups working really hard to create permanent child allowance. And so there's a link to sign up right here. And with that, well, thank you very much. We'll turn it back over to Ben if there's anything that he'd like to add.
No, that was great. I know it's sort of back to school time, and I will have to say that the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air references in the examples sort of took me back because that was sort of I remember after school show that I would always watch after getting home from school. So that took me back.
Yeah, those references entertain me to no end. I'm so glad I'm not the only one.
Joel?
Thank you both so much for that incredibly informative and useful presentation. Missy, it was occurring to me that in your list of resources at the end there, this presentation should be added because this will live on and be available online on the American Constitution Society website and on YouTube. So will be a great sort of ongoing resource for folks that want to learn more about the child tax credit and want to benefit from Missy's very incredible and granular step-by-step guide to getting signed up. So thank you both for that. We do have some time for questions, so continue submitting them through the Q&A box if you haven't done so already. But Missy, on that point about resources, you rattled through and listed off a number of really helpful points of contact for people that want to learn more about getting enrolled or their eligibility and so on. Is there any one like navigator or resource you would point people toward who maybe watch this presentation, understand the process, but just want a little extra like on the ground support when they're actually trying to get signed up and enrolled in the child tax credit? What in your view is sort of the best resource that you would encourage folks to go toward if they just want a little kind of professional assistance in getting signed up?
Yeah, that's a really great question, Joel. I think there are definitely a really wide range of resources available to folks. Folks who are using the portal that we demonstrated. There is live tech support available through Code for America to help folks navigate that. There's also, a lot of community organizations who are doing amazing on the ground work, getting folks signed up, doing outreach. We know navigators are such an important resource right now, and can't overlook, VITA sites and everything that they do to help folks with tax preparation. And so I really feel like it's just sort of a big army of folks who are really committed to trying to help as many people as possible get signed up for this benefit.
Got it. That's helpful. Ben, let me direct this question to you. So this program we've talked about today that has made such an impact, and really that cannot be understated. It has been so important to so many families so quickly already. This right now is only in effect for this year, 2021. Could you tell us a bit about the prospects for this advanced child tax credit continuing in the long term and whether it will get extended beyond 2021?
Sure. Well, so those conversations are happening in Congress right now as we speak. And so, I'd say the outlook is promising, but what we're asking people to do is to reach out to their elected officials and make sure that they know, how important the child tax credit is for them and what it's done for their lives. I think the easiest way for our elected officials to sort of understand the impact is to sort of share, how it's helped you. I know for, in my own family, I have 2 young children and they are growing, constantly. And so, we were able to use our advanced child tax credit payments to buy new clothes to start the school year. I imagine, that's something that's common for many families across America. So I think we need to get the word out in terms of how important it is. Let our elected officials know. And as these talks continue and progress, hopefully we'll see positive news on that front. I do want to pitch it to Missy in case she has anything to add, because I know she's sort of following the latest in DC on this issue.
No, I think Ben hit on everything. I think this feels like it's so like timely and imminent, because I think literally within these next few weeks, Congress is ironing out the details of this reconciliation bill. And we know that this is definitely one of those pieces. And so, yeah, as much noise as folks can make, as many ways as they can sort of make their voice heard, reach out to their congressperson, let them know how, like Ben said, that the personal impact of this, how it's affecting children and families, and how critical this benefit is. I think that's so important always, but like immediately also just because of the timing of this being negotiated.
Yeah, and Joel, one thing that also just occurred to me, and one thing I wish I had emphasized more in the beginning in my remarks was when we were talking about the potential impact, the potential of cutting child poverty in half. We only get there. We only hit those numbers if folks sign up. So I think it's incredibly important, if there are people in your networks that need the resources that we've been talking about today, please share them widely and get the word out. Because this, we're only going to be as successful as our outreach and education efforts around this.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And it seems to be the families who are most likely to fall through the cracks or not sign up are perhaps the ones who would benefit the most, and where this money would mean the most if they could just get access to it. So anyone who's in a position to help make that happen would be doing a major service to combating child poverty in America. Ben, your story about using the payment, the first couple payments to buy back to school clothes for your kids is really moving, and I think it's important to put visceral stories like that before policymakers so they really understand the impact of policy. I will just note that American Constitution Society is a 501c3 nonprofit and does not take stances on pending legislation. But with that note, in the last couple of minutes we have here, I just wanted to ask each of you, how could the child tax credit be improved? What are the kind of one or two adjustments or reforms that you would like to see to make this program even better?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think honestly, the first thing that comes to mind for me is really making sure that it reaches the most children as possible. Some of the sort of qualifying child language in our tax code that really excludes certain kids, either because they live with a more distant relative, or maybe don't live in the same home for 6 months of a year. I think, if those tweaks could be made where we could make this accessible to more children, maybe that, maybe make it so that there aren't sort of all of these stipulations that maybe get in the way. I think that could potentially be an improvement, especially when we think of, the kids who are the most vulnerable.
Yeah, and I second that. I don't know that I really have a lot to add there. I mean, I think the largest gap here in this current bill, or what we have now, what was expanded rather, is that it's not reaching many immigrant children, and I think that and it's obviously the fact that it wasn't permanent. So those fixes need to be made, and hopefully we'll get one of those soon.
Yes, great. Well, on that note, I think we should close it out. I thank you both for your time and sharing your expertise on this really important program with us today. And thank you for all our guests for joining. Please follow our organizations on Twitter, Facebook, find us, subscribe to our emails for more great events like this one. And thank you everybody for spending part of your day with us. Take care.
Thank you so much.